try to.
Hello, hello.
We have to.
Can everybody hear me? So good evening. My name's Jeff Schwanner. I'm the executive editor of Cardinal News. Thank you to everyone who has gathered here tonight, including the House District 40 candidates, our moderator, and you, the public, as well as those viewing the live stream of this forum and those who will view it later to help inform their vote. For the candidates' biographies and more information on where they stand on certain issues, please visit our voter guide. They both contributed. Thank you very much. But tonight we have this special opportunity to hear them speak directly to you. The people you elect will decide many things which will affect your quality of life here in Salem. So it's important you know more of where each of these candidates stands on things that are important to you. In fact, many of the questions they will be asked tonight come from you, so we thank you for that as well. So I'd like to introduce our candidates. First, the challenger, Democratic Donna Littlepage, and the incumbent, Republican Joe McNamara. And our moderator is Jeffrey Vick. Mr. Vick is an adjunct professor of political science at Roanoke College. A retired Foreign Service officer and former Army officer, Mr. Vick has recently settled in the Roanoke Valley after 35 years of service in 10 countries and in Washington, D.C. He's the big Jeff on stage. A reminder, what we say at Cardinal News, civility rules. This is not a debate. This is an opportunity for these fellow citizens to introduce themselves, to introduce themselves to you in a way they hope you'll remember positively when you cast your vote. And now please welcome our moderator, Mr. Vick.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and I wouldn't dare call him Little Jeff at all, because he packs a big punch in the media, and really appreciate his and Cardinal News work over the past couple of years that I've been here in the Roanoke Valley. Anyway, again, we're going to have a town hall format in which I pose questions to the candidates. The candidates will each have 2 minutes to respond. I will remind them as we get to the 2-minute limit to finish their statement. And then after each statement, the other candidate will have an opportunity of about a minute to make a rejoinder or ask a question of the other candidate or a clarifying comment. At the end of the question session, we will then allow them each to make supplemental statements about what they might have wanted to say, and we'll put that out in front of you for your consideration as well. So I believe this evening we'll start with the challenger, and I'm going to pose a question. I'll repeat the question for each of you if you wish, or if you want to just jump in once I signal you for your time starting, then we'll do that. And so we'll start with Ms. Littlepage, and your first question is, what would you like most, or what would you most like voters to know about in this campaign? Please start.
Well, thank you. And first, thank you all for coming tonight. You've given one of the most expensive things you have, and that's your time. And so I appreciate that. What do I want most of you to know? I guess part of the reason I'm running, I guess, is what I would like folks to know. I retired from Carillion after 35 years last year. And I was happily about to enter retirement when I got a call and was asked if I would run for the House of Delegates. The reason I said yes is because I know everything there is to know about Medicaid. And at the time I retired, I can't say that I necessarily realized that we were going to need that in the General Assembly, because I didn't realize that what was actually about to happen to the state funding for Medicaid. And so I thought it would be useful to have someone in the General Assembly who knew Medicaid, could figure out ways to stretch dollars further and keep as many people covered with as many of the services we currently have, and keep the providers as intact as we can, when this is all said and done. And so that's why I decided to run. And I think as I've talked to people over the last, however many months it is, 6 months, since I made that decision, I've heard a lot about they appreciate that. Another part is that healthcare is interconnected. So it's easy to say that, it's Medicaid and I'm not on Medicaid, despite the fact that 1 in 6 people in the district are on Medicaid. But healthcare is very interconnected, and I have 35 years of experience to tell me that. And so when things happen to one part of the program, it tends to impact the rest of it. It's kind of, the analogy I've used for people, it's like a balloon. You squeeze it in one place, it will come out in another. And the more employer-sponsored commercial side is where it's liable to come out, and that's going to impact a lot of people, either through the ACA or employer-sponsored healthcare. So that's what I would like people to know about why I'm running, because I think I can help related to this.
Thank you very much. Mr. McNamara, you have 1 minute for any additional clarifying questions, or you can choose to waive at your pleasure.
Okay, so I don't answer the same question.
Okay, you will get the same question. What would you like most? What would you most like voters to know about in this campaign?
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank Cardinal News. Cardinal News has done a wonderful job. There's very few people that are covering the General Assembly and politics in general in the Commonwealth of Virginia, so they're performing a fantastic service. I think when people know and understand their state government, their local government, we're all better off as citizens. So thank you. I also would like to really appreciate everybody that came out tonight. So it's fantastic that you're interested, so that we could share some of our thoughts and you can be better informed and make good decisions. But why am I running? Why did I get involved in politics? It goes back quite a ways. So originally it was schools. That's my children were involved at Cave Spring High School. Cave Spring High School at the time had 3 grades in the high school. It was one of 4 schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia that did not have all 4 grades. I felt that while we had fantastic teachers and fantastic programs, our physical facilities were insufficient. That got me involved in politics. Over time, I've kind of developed an expertise, not kind of, I have the expertise and am pretty well known in the General Assembly as the go-to person for anything related to tax policy. Tax policy is incredibly important because that impacts your pocketbook. We have 2 very different philosophies on how taxes should be administered between the Republican Democratic, between the Republican and Democratic parties. And I hope we'll have a chance to cover that before we're done here today. Medicaid is, certainly I hope that we'll have a question to talk through where we are with Medicaid. I'm sure we have very different approaches, and I'd love to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We've programmed in a minute after each candidate's questions in case there's a rejoinder or an additional comment before we move on to the next question. Would either of you like to provide a rejoinder or additional comment? Well, okay, that's fine. We can move on. All right. All right. Thank you very much. So we're gonna move back to Ms. Littlepage. Why are electric rates so high, and what, if anything, can be done legislatively about that?
Well, I think there's several areas I think there's possibility related to utility rates. A lot of people are talking about the data center usage and how it's forcing us to build capacity for them. I think that's one area where I personally feel like the data center should cover the cost of building that capacity, and it should be a cost of doing business for them because they're going to sell their services in a far broader region than the local utility users who would otherwise be paying. So I think that's one thing we need to address in terms of how that capacity is funded. I think that as I read more about this, because I work in healthcare, so we're talking about utilities, as I read more about this, it seems part of the issue in the way that they ask for more money is broken into pieces, and they make separate requests, and each one individually sounds okay, but we really need to be looking at it in totality to make sure that it's reasonable. And I think part of that requires that the SCC have the right people on the commission who can ask the right questions when those come through. I jokingly tell people one thing I learned over the years is torture numbers long enough, they'll confess to anything. And so you always need to be interrogating them very well to make sure they are what they need to be in terms of what we are being asked to fund back to the regulated utilities. I agree with Delegate McNamara that people who regulate a utility should not take money from a utility, so actually I do agree with him on that point. And so I think that's another opportunity just to make sure that we are doing all we can to control the rate costs for people. I actually think that there are issues for things like reliability for those people, particularly who live in Franklin County earlier this year or late last year. They spent a lot of time not having electricity. So I think reliability is something we also need to address with the utility companies.
Thank you for that. Mr. McNamara, would you like a minute to rejoinder on those comments, or we want to move on to your comments here?
I'll just go on to my comments.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a good starting point on where we are with electric utilities, but it goes a whole lot deeper, and it goes to the dollars. So a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, at that time I was the single only Republican in the House of Delegates that would not accept utility contributions to my campaign, the only single one. Since that time, there's a number of others. But the problem you have, and I understand the problem very well. I serve on the Commerce and Labor Committee, which is where all those regulation bills come through. I actually, until this past year, served on the Energy Subcommittee. I was pulled off the Energy Subcommittee and put on the Health Insurance Committee, so that's how I know a little bit about the Medicaid and how that all works. But why was I pulled off that committee? And that is because the speaker, the Democratic speaker, knew that the utilities could not buy my vote. And he didn't want me on that committee. So he pulled me off and put in another committee. Why would the speaker do that? Well, the speaker got $1.1 million from Dominion Energy last year in his campaign. $1.1 million. He's at $600,000 between his campaign and his leadership PAC this year. So one election cycle, he's already up to $1.7 million. This, by the way, is more than all the Republicans that take utility money put together. That's where the problem is. How are they regulated? The SEC. Well, the SEC had one judge on it for most of the strength of character, and it takes intelligence to understand what's going on. These bills are incredibly complicated, and what happens, the utility companies write the bills, they give them to their hand-picked legislators, and between the speaker and the Democrats and a few Republicans, they get their bills passed. We need to open up the marketplace. We need to have competition. The Virginia Clean Economy Act, while noble in its intent, is we can't get there. We can't get there, and we need it. And what's happening is
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. I'm afraid your time is up.
You are all being the ones that are being paying that bill.
Yep. Okay, rejoinder, 1 minute for Ms. Littlepage, if you'd like to make one.
Well, I guess I have to respond to part of that. I worry sometimes when people get painted with a really broad brush. I personally feel that politics run a phenomenal spectrum from the far left to the far right. And so when we say Democrats, we act like everybody is a uniform entity. And they're not. And I would agree, I am sure these bills are very complex. And I don't know if anybody's actually been able to draw a line between money received and votes taken. I don't know that. If they did, then I wish Cardinal News and others would find that and publish that. Because it's a little bit of a slur if you don't have facts to back up taking money impacted a vote you did. I don't believe everything the utilities bring up is bad for consumers. I think you have to be open-minded when you look at that and really take a holistic review of what is in front of you to decide what's the right answer. And that's what I would hope we would do with all of these. I don't know. There are a lot of people who get money from Clean Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Littlepage. Just wrap it up, please, if you have
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the next question, and this time we're going to reverse order so that both of you have an opportunity to hear both sets of comments and rejoinder after that. So this next question will go to Mr. McNamara, and it's from an audience member. What are your plans for providing assistance for those that will lose their government assistance, SNAP, Medicare, etc.?
Thank you. So I think what we're really referring to is Medicaid, principally. Now, a better part, an add-on to that question is what about premium assistance that is, potentially going away? So let me kind of address that. When you look at Medicaid, Medicaid was designed to take care of the poor, the ill, the children. It was not designed to be a health insurance plan for perfectly able-bodied individuals. What is the change to Medicaid right now, which, by the way, we have 15 months, requires a 18.5 hours per week of work by an able-bodied, healthy person. That's it. And they can be they can continue to stay on Medicaid, given their income levels. Now, when we say that's terrible, that they shouldn't have this, or they shouldn't lose this coverage costs money. There is no such thing as free medical care, as Ms. Littlepage would know. It costs money, and you out here are the ones that are paying for that. So it seems to me perfectly reasonable to maintain the solvency and the strength of the program. If someone has to work 18.5 hours, you have 15 months to get ready. By the way, if you have you're ill and you can't work, if you have children at home you're caring for, there are all sorts of exceptions. You can volunteer, you can be in college, but I think that's reasonable to ask. That was the way the program was through its history, and it was just changed fairly recently, and I think that will make the program stronger going forward. The people losing coverage, nobody's losing coverage. They are choosing. There are some people that will choose to not work their 18.5 hours a week. So they are choosing to not be part of that program. But nobody's losing coverage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. A rejoinder from Ms. Littlepage, if you will. One minute.
We will see if nobody loses coverage simply because of the amount of funding that is stopping coming to Virginia, and can Virginia afford the backfill. So I think the question about will people lose coverage is yet to be determined. I will say that when we had traditional Medicaid, prior to Medicaid expansion, Virginia ranked 48th out of 50 states in spending on Medicaid per citizen. I don't think that was a lot to be proud of, although the business community may have thought so, and I'm not trying to be mean to the business community. But I don't think that put us in really great stead. When we expanded Medicaid, I think we're now 25th or 26th, so we're close to average on spending for Medicaid, and we covered 630,000 more Virginians. I don't know that people are so concerned that the work required in and of itself is horrible. It's how you administer it and how it impacts people that will make a difference, how easy it is for them to figure out how to turn in hours. And what about the people who've applied for disability but take 2 to 3 years to be approved? Where do they fit in this? How long will it take before Medicaid says, well, no, you really don't have to work, and they lose coverage during that interim? These are implementation questions that will have to be answered.
Thank you. That's your minute. Hold on to the mic, though, because you now get 2 minutes for your position to answer this question. The last one was just a rejoinder, and then you'll get a chance to rejoinder her question at the end of her comments. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was it?
You get 2 minutes to answer the question. What you just did was a rejoinder to his comment. No problem. So just carry on.
Well, I get 2 more minutes. Cool. My favorite topic about Medicaid.
Yes.
I think I worry some about the way it's been done, because it is meant in some ways to create regulation that will prompt people who are eligible to fall through the cracks. And that is going to require more work for everybody. When you take eligibility from having to be reviewed once every 6 months, from once every 12 months, that's more work, administrative work, that the state is going to have to fund. when you implement work requirements, that is more oversight the state is going to have to pay for. And at one point, one review said that it really wasn't worth it to the state to actually implement that because there weren't be enough people who ended up off of Medicaid to pay for the cost of the oversight. So I think you have to look at it very holistically through all of this. And there's a lot in that bill that has to do with payments to providers. And a good chunk of the impact of all this may very well be on how it hits the actual healthcare providers. And you hear people talk about hospitals closing, and that is the worst case scenario, and I'm sure the state will do everything it can to make sure that doesn't happen. But if it does, people will be traveling farther to hospitals closer, farther from the Southwest. I said that badly, I'm sorry. You know, which is going to put more pressure on emergency rooms here in Roanoke necessarily, or in the Newer Valley, which prompts people to head this way and not go to Newer Valley. So it'll have a ripple effect that we need to be careful about. The other part is, you know, there is, and he mentioned, I totally agree, the loss of the premium subsidies, and once again, I thank Cardinal News for the reported that it cost $234 million to backfill the insurance premium subsidies that working Virginians get today.
Okay, and
to afford their health insurance.
thank you very much. I'm sorry your time's run out on that question. We're going to move on to the, you have a rejoinder. I'm sorry, you have a 1 minute rejoinder, Mr. McNamara.
Yeah, so there's just a couple things. You know, figures don't lie, but liars figure. 230 or $240 million, whatever it is, on the premium subsidies. Of that roughly $250 million, 175 million of that is new subsidies that were created during COVID that never existed before, and we still had hospitals. They were created during COVID, and they apply to people with over 400% of the poverty level income. These are six-figure households that are getting the premium subsidy. The 75 million, first of all, I expect Congress is going to go back and pick up the lower income people on those subsidies. If they don't, $75 million is roughly 1/4 of 1% of our budget. And by the way, in the month of July, we ran $140 or $50 million over budget just that month. So there are always programs that we need to fund that because things change or requirements change. Administering Medicaid is not something that the Commonwealth can't do and we can't do effectively. Taking care of the premium reductions or the premium payments is something that certainly can be looked at in our budget.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll be moving on to our next question, and we'll have Mr. McNamara start with this. And this is also from an audience member. So if Virginia legalizes retail sales of cannabis, do you support a system where localities can opt in to allow for sales or for localities to opt out?
Yeah, so I don't really need 2 minutes. I have been consistent. I do not support the legalization of cannabis. I think we have seen enough cases. We've had places across the country that we can see what's happened with increased emergency visits, increased psychosis. It's another vice, and I don't see any reason to make it easier for our children or adults to have cannabis.
Thank you for that, sir. 1 minute for a rejoinder from Ms. Littlepage.
I just sneak right into the answering it. I think from my perspective, Virginia legalized the growth of marijuana in small amounts in your own household kind of stuff. So I don't know that it's not out there. I would not say that a market is not already existent out there and has been for, 50, 60 more years at least, if not more. My only comment about this is if you're going to do it, you talk about a retail market, you have to do it the same way you deal with other things that you think are unhealthy. And one would say cigarettes and alcohol, or how Virginia deals with that today. In that if there is something that is out there that we think is going to exist and we're better to regulate it than not, then why would this be any different than that? So the fact that you're just saying you can't have a retail market, most of me is saying, well, there's a market already, you're just not regulating it. And wouldn't you be better if you just regulated it? So that's my opinion about that.
Thank you. Actually, she's got 2 minutes for her own comments on the question.
Rejoin?
I'll permit it.
Yes, so I will say I did not vote to let the 4 plants be legal either. And I also thought that this isn't really fair application, because if I'm living in an apartment, I guess I have to turn my closet into a grow closet. But if I'm a wealthy landowner, I have a place to grow my pot. So really, when we think about the little, I always think of the most disadvantaged person that I'm representing, and it doesn't seem like it's fair application.
Thank you. Would you like a counter rejoinder, or do you want to start your 2 minutes?
You can go.
I'm sorry?
You can move on.
Okay. So do you want to cede your 2 minutes on the cannabis question and move on to the next question?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I pretty much gave my answer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Move
All right.
through this.
We're going to go back to starting the question with the challenger, Ms. Littlepage, and we'll still allow for 2 minutes with a rejoinder, and then 2 minutes and a rejoinder if you choose to do that. So this is also from an audience member. The legislature will take up multiple proposed constitutional amendments. One would guarantee the right to a same-sex marriage regardless of what the U.S. Supreme Court does. You've already answered all these in Cardinal's voter guide, but some audience members wanted to hear you address this tonight.
Okay. I don't know if we're going to get to all the constitutional amendments, but for the one related to marriage equality, which is what I would prefer to call it, I would support that. I don't think it belonged in our Constitution in the first place. And I will be very honest, it's in this crowd, I happen to be one of the beneficiaries of that federal law. And so if the federal government decides to undo it, I would like my state to not nullify my marriage. And so therefore, I would prefer that we remove it from our state constitution. Because and I think the other thing that we're just trying to say is people deserve equality, right? I mean, that's really all it is. Like, to actually have the same rights and contractual rights that other married couples have, and to be honest, the same right to pay more federal taxes because you're married than if you're not. But
Thank you very much for those comments. A rejoinder for Mr. McNamara. 1 minute, please.
I'll just answer the question. So I think the voters should have an opportunity to allow same-sex marriage in our Constitution, and I voted that way, and we'll see where it goes. Now, on your taxes, I don't know why you're paying more just because you're married, because we have made some, I'd be glad to help take a quick look at those.
Thank you for that comment. Our format would normally allow for a rejoinder from the challenger. Do you waive that rejoinder, or do we and move on to the next question? No.
yeah, I think when you said that you voted for that amendment to go to the ballot, that's what you were saying? Mm-hmm. Okay.
There was like 6 Republicans that voted for it,
Right.
and every Democrat.
So no, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next question. This one's also from an audience member, and we're going to start with the challenger again. This is another proposed constitutional amendment would guarantee the right to terminate a pregnancy. You've already answered all these in Cardinal Voters Guide, but multiple audience members would like to hear you address this tonight. Go ahead and begin, please.
So my belief is that when a 50-year precedent is overturned, the voters of Virginia should have the right to decide what to do about that. We've seen what's happened in states around us because of the overturning Roe versus Wade, and I do believe that the voters should get to decide. And I recognize, as in the voter guide, that we currently have laws that accommodate that. I think my concern is voters just need to decide if they want 73 people in the future to be able to change that law, because that's all it would take, 21 senators, 51 delegates, and 1 governor to change it to a law that looks like Texas and Georgia. And one of the problems I have with their laws is it puts the legislature into the exam room, and I don't believe the legislature belongs in the exam room. There are many things that go into decisions that women and their spouses or partners make at these times in their life, and I just don't think that government belongs in the room making doctors feel like they can't make decisions that they know they ought to make. They keep waiting because they don't want somebody looking over their shoulder to decide, well, no, you did that too soon. That person wasn't about to die, so you didn't have the right to do it. Those are just not good things, and it's a slippery slope. And so that is one I think should go to the voters to decide how they feel about it.
1 minute rejoinder from Mr. McNamara, or you can go to your 2 minutes. Your choice.
Yes, so I'll start with my rejoinder. So the 73 members can change it. Well, really, this has turned into a complete political issue. There is no issue on the table right now. We have a Democratic Senate that every single Democrat in the House, every single Democrat in the Senate has voted for the constitutional amendment. So the Senate's not changing. Now, I don't know what will happen with the governor. I don't know what will happen with the House of Delegates. But the Senate, the right to abortion is not going to go away in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so the fear-mongering that it is just purely political. Now, what is being considered is a constitutional amendment that will make abortion legal up until the moment of birth. The moment of birth. Yes, it is. That's what the constitutional amendment says. Anytime a lady or a person would determine that this is troublesome for their mental or physical health having that baby. Is that where we really want Virginia to be? That will be the most liberal abortion law, more liberal than California, Massachusetts,
That's your 1
Connecticut.
minute. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go into my 2 minutes.
Go into your 2, please.
So that will be more liberal than all of South Africa, most of Asia, all of Europe, Iran, Iraq, Russia. Is that what we really want? So I'll tell you a couple things that we've done as people that don't want to see that happen. We put together some bills because there's this talk of somebody's going to have a pregnancy that's going to impact their life, and they're not going to be able to have an abortion. That's the big talk going around because of these laws and So we put in a bill. We put in a bill that made it very, very clear: if a woman's life is in danger, she can have an abortion. The doctor can have perform the abortion, and no one will be in trouble. Democrats refused to hear it this past year. Didn't even hear the bill. So who's really concerned about the person that has the trouble that's really trying to make these difficult decisions? What are they doing in Northern Virginia? They're taking school kids without telling their parents to go have abortions and funding them. Okay?
Let the candidates speak, please. I call for order in this town hall.
Well,
Please let the candidates speak.
you certainly do remember the former governor, the Democratic governor, that said if the baby's born and he's alive, we will set him down and make him comfortable. Look, this is not where Virginia needs to be.
Thank you for that. 1 minute rejoinder, please.
Let me give you, because this is, and everybody just watched my blood pressure go up, didn't you? Let me tell you Ralph Northam's story in reality. A man and a woman are in a delivery room, excited to have their baby, and it is born, and it becomes obvious that baby's not viable. The mental torture those parents and that doctor went through while they watched that baby pass away. And you have the audacity to repeat that.
He said it. I just repeated it.
But that's what he's talking about. He's a physician, and so while people say we'll pass laws that allow termination up to delivery, find me a doctor that will tell you they will do one. They won't. I spent 35 years working in healthcare. We don't do that.
Okay,
and it's not You can switch to the 2
Sorry,
minutes now.
that's,
Give
I
me
know.
some-
It's everybody gets passionate about this issue. Get your minutes up, and we're going to move on to the next question. But thank you. We really appreciate the exchange of views. This final question is also from an audience member, and I think it's going to be a lot less, shall we say, interesting, but, but no. Anyway, this question is also from an audience member, and we're going to go ahead and stick with the challenger here. Can you name an issue, Ms. Littlepage, that you and your opponent agree on, and how would your approach differ or be similar to solve this issue?
There's one we agree on. Okay, I'm going to have to get over the last one. And I'm sitting here going, did I get to answer that in 2 minutes for that question? Did I? Okay. Too much to say on that topic, evidently. One we agree on. I'm trying to remember. We did agree on solar siting should be a locality issue. The locality should decide that. We did agree on that. I was trying to remember the others. But what I would, so I don't remember a lot, and I have not done a thorough review of what I can only imagine is a lot of hard work voting on 1,400 bills during one session. And so kudos to your service in doing that. But so one thing I would say is I did a leadership program that was talking about bipartisanship and how do we work together. And so when I finished that course, one thing I was, I guess, somewhat excited by was they gave out awards at the very end. And the award I got, because this was a class with Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, we were all there. I got the award for most likely to build trust. And so that is one of the reasons I think I can do well. I spent a career negotiating. That's what we did with insurance companies. And we still remain friends. We still work together, even though you have to negotiate and take a stand at times. So I think it is experience I have that would be valuable in working with others. And I would like to offer that as a way, and maybe you remember more things out of the voter guide that we would agree on than I do.
So you've got the usual minute rejoinder and 2 minute comment. So
Yeah,
you can use
so
those.
I'm not real sure. Because you don't have a voting record. It sounds like we agree that we shouldn't have terminations of pregnancy at the moment before birth, although I'm curious as why the Democrats would draft a constitutional amendment to say that that's what they want, because that's what the amendment says. So I would also say that I think you'd probably have a great deal of trust. The CPA designation is one that people take very seriously, and so I think, and that's across the aisle between the Democrats and Republicans. So, yeah, there you
Would
go.
you like to take 2 minutes of your time, or are we complete? Okay. At this
to
point,
respond to what he
would you
just
like to?
said?
Okay. I did give him a little extra time for an extra rejoinder, so you may have it too.
Because I do, you went back to abortion. Sorry. I would want to say that that amendment was written in recognition of what the standard of care and medical laws are in Virginia. The amendment didn't have to restate all of those or put itself in a position to have to be amended if that changes for some reason. So all the physicians I know will deliver a viable baby and do everything they can to keep it alive. And so I'd still go back. That amendment is not written so someone can terminate a baby who is viable. It's not written to say that because we have laws already in Virginia that covered that. You couldn't do it even if the amendment said it. You can't do it. Doctors would lose their license for doing that. So we need to be logical and rational about this and bear in mind that other states have put in place laws that did come between providers and their patients, and that is part of what this one is about. Keep the legislature out of the exam room and let doctors do what doctors do.
Thank you, Ms. Littlepage. Okay, thank you very much for that exchange of views. We have one final segment. Each of you will have 2 minutes for closing statements. We're going to start with Mr. McNamara, alternating the word back to him. Please start.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here and being polite. It is really an honor to serve in the General Assembly, and I value each and every one of your opinions and try very, very hard. I would like to recognize my wife who's sitting here, actually one of my sons, because they do so much to help me and to help you. Reagan Owens, who's here, is the absolute top-notch aide. If you, any of you, that I recognize a number of people out in the audience, if you get to Richmond, I think you'll know that you'll get in to see me, and Reagan will make that happen no matter what she has to do to make that happen. So it's a true privilege and an honor. I would say, though, when I'm knocking doors, and you do a little bit of candidate research on your opposition, right? Very, very difficult to push back against a very strong speaker and vote what you think you should vote. For instance, a different constitutional amendment than the one that every single Democrat voted for. But what you will be voting for is an increase, allowing localities to increase your tax rate by 1%. Every Democrat has voted for that in the past. So now instead of 5.3%, we're at 6.3%. Many, 3/8 of the state now has an extra 0.7% sales tax added. We will have that. So now you're at 7%. The meals tax, which now localities, some of them are at 6%, and could go higher. There's some down in Southwest Virginia at over 10%. These are taxes that hit the very hard working folks. The mother with 2 children that stops by Kroger to pick up a rotisserie chicken and is paying 10 or 12 or 15% tax on that.
Thank you, sir.
That is what the Democrats will vote for, and every single one of them voted for it.
Thank you, sir. And we'll hear the closing statement from Ms. Donna Littlepage. Thank you.
First, I get to address that. One, I can promise that I am not what he just described at all. I have spent a career standing my ground when it was appropriate to stand my ground. It will not change, no matter what happens. And I am not beholden to a party, and I'm not beholden to be reelected, because I'll be damned if I let people tell me what to do when it is not in the best interest of the people who live in my district. So, and even though I said I was for allowing localities to have that 1% sales tax for schools, you're allowing a referendum. The voters of that locality have to vote in that 1% tax, and I figure if they vote for it, they must really want it. So I think it takes flexibility away from a locality that the voters would get to decide if they wanted to use. So yes, I said we should do that. But that's why I said it, because you would get to decide, not the people in Richmond who get to decide. You don't get to do it. So I am socially conscious and fiscally pragmatic. I believe in taking care of my neighbor as best we can. I believe in taking care of our planet as best we can, but I totally recognize there are only so many dollars to spend, and we have to prioritize what we do and figure out what's in the best interest. I also know you have to have well-paid employees and financially healthy businesses. It's a balancing act, and we have to do it. And all this talk about every Democrat votes this way and every Republican votes that way, I'm sorry, that's what's wrong right now. How many people remember John Warner? All right. Republican I voted for because that man voted his conscience. That is my role model, that type of person. So take with it what you will, but that's the person who would go to Richmond.
Thank you, Ms. Littlepage. Well, thank you very much for turning out tonight. I want to thank our candidates, Ms. Littlepage and Mr. McNamara, for providing us their views on several issues that are important to you, the constituent. And I just want to offer, if there's anybody from Cardinal News that wants to come up and close this session, to give you that opportunity. But if not, okay, we do have, Jeff is going to come up and say a few final words.
I don't know what question you got. Thought I was starting to work out.
I very much appreciate the great turnout tonight, and I hope that you've learned something about each of those candidates that you didn't know before you walked in the door, and that is the purpose for these. I appreciate the spirit of the commentary. I also appreciate that we let folks speak so we can hear them. I know there's a lot of passion in the room, and that's gonna inform your voting. So I really appreciate you all being here, and go out and vote.
Thank you.
All righty.
That was very good. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you before session. I should, considering I'm a big fan of the Hang out with Lee and